Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Injury Time. I'm sorry that we were little delayed with the episodes, but a lot of us were traveling and few other things came in between. But we are back now. Both leagues in full swing, and the Asian Cup, the Women's Asian Cup, is also over for India. And we'll start with that discussion. Orko, generally speaking, before we get into the nitty gritty of it, 3 games, 3 losses, 14 goals conceded. Once again, we sort of are talking about the moment of class, Manisha's free kick or Safida Nongrum's goal, etc., which are good. But what do you make it overall of this
Yeah.
performance?
So 16 goals considered, firstly, I think.
60? Oh, minus 14 goal difference. Sorry, because he scored two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, if I the first thing that comes to mind is that there are no moments that I remember from 2024. That tournament is a blur for me, right? It felt like those guys just went over there and rolled over. And I don't want to be too hypercritical because I was speaking to Pride also. I mean, they did surprise us in patches, right? They did not roll over like we expected them to, right? I would say there is a silver lining at the end of all of this, is the fact that even now, if we get our grassroots right, there is a chance that we may be able to save Indian women's football, right? For the men, I feel like it's a step too far, maybe, right? But we don't not talking about the men. For the women, I'm saying, for example, whenever you watch a Indian national team match, they were down 1-0 to Vietnam, right? You expected them to concede 3-4 more in the second half. They could have, right? But they showed some character. They came back, they fought, right? Again, similarly against Taipei. And I know these are, some may say I'm clutching at straws, but yeah, they came back, they equalized, right? And they were in it for long periods of time. Yes, they were outplayed, whatever. But I'm saying there are small glimpses here and there which we can take back.
Prad, now that you heard from a newly optimistic Orko, what is your take on
Yeah, I think I watched it with a lot of focus this time, a lot more than I have in the past, and I think that's obviously because I've been recently involved in the women's game as well, and closely follow the truncated IWL this season. And I even just put up something. I said after the first game, you've got to look at what we need to do to catch up with that gap that's happened. There's a gap that's growing between the rest of Asia and us, and I'm not talking about your Japans and Koreas. That's a jump too far. That's not going to happen not in my lifetime anyway. And unless you believe in reincarnation, not in your lifetime. But I don't know if they're going to do any of those things that they need to do. That's the sad thing. Like what I was saying. I mean, and some of the things are simple. Have a proper league. Have a league that runs longer. You can't have this league which just stopped in the middle because all right, go. If the fact that we finished dead last, let's not sort of paper over the cracks. Dead last. You look at point goals conceded and everything like that. It was the worst performing team, just like our under 17 boys were when we hosted the under 17. We were the worst team in the tournament. But fact of the matter is, at least we've gotten there on merit, right? So I think you got to take the small steps at a time. And if you talk about, from a coach's point of view, if you're looking at how can your federation do everything possible to help you, or you flip it the other side and say, how can they do everything to screw you over? They've done that, right? It's like the coach, the goalkeeping coach, the analyst, everyone's sitting in the airport waiting to go for a last minute planned trip to Turkey for exposure trip. They love this exposure trip thing. And then you get on a Zoom call and they say, oh, by the way, we've got this coach coming from Costa Rica and she's going to bring her goalkeeping coach and so and so. And so that, there it starts. You bring a coach in. Yeah, look, she's got decent pedigree as a coach, but I bet you 6 months ago, she hadn't a clue about Indian football. Probably never watched the IWL, nothing. So when that happens, you're gone with the wrong players. If this is the men's football, you'd have people saying, why isn't so-and-so here? Why isn't this person there? He did so well in the I-League or ISL or whatever. but no one follows enough of the IWL. So there's not enough voices about why this player is picked and why this player isn't picked, and some shocking omissions, by the way. And credit to the coach that she actually picked younger players to go, and she recognized that some of these golden oldies are way past their sell-by date, right? And just like in men's football, you need to put them aside to pass and say, let's build on the future. And she did, and something that Nongram came on, showed what she can do. A couple of the substitutions in the first game made a huge impact. So India played positively. It wasn't like go to a major tournament, park the bus, and then come out with some respect. So you got to give that credit. But had they picked the right players, had they had a proper preparation, had they had a proper league before, I think they could have done a lot better. So I think it's really unfair on the players that they were thrown in with this, like, basically major handicaps, and the finger can only be pointed in one direction alone, and everyone knows that. But I think you touched upon it, Sandeep, about this great article written by this girl who attended as a volunteer in Australia, and she said there wasn't a single Indian journalist there. So, I mean, as a journalist, I think it's too much to expect that you're going to pay for a journalist to go to Australia and go there, but even the lack of reporting is just disgraceful from all the media. It's your national team's playing in a major competition, women's, and with all what's happened in Indian women's cricket this year, what's happening with, if there's a men's team, there'd be a big hullabaloo about it. But I think it's disgraceful from the media as well that there's absolutely no support, no coverage whatsoever for a women's team playing in a major continental tournament.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in the sense that Indian football in general doesn't get enough coverage, but women's football especially so. It is one of those things, and I know people who tried to go for the AFC Cup, Asian Cup for the men's game. The last time when India qualified. And it's a great trip because you have to go to Qatar, which is not expensive, and you only have to go for 1 week because we are out in the group stage. So there is no idea of extending it to, covering for a month and, such kind of stuff. So even that is not always possible. Very few journalists end up going there. And this is, like you said, really poor. But before that, we get into some nitty-gritties of the things that you mentioned with the federation and stuff. We have to look at some positives because after Bala Devi's that era, I was looking for the next star. And then we have Manisha Kalyan, who is, probably in terms of achievements about going out and playing in Europe and now in Latin America, etc., has done spectacularly well. And you have these lovely stories in women's game, which maybe it exists in the men's game. We all know because we write or talk or text each other about certain players and so on. But that Safida Nongrum story is great. And it's also really nice to come from that sort of part of the world where not a lot of women's footballers have come before. So it gives a boost to them as well. But again, coming back to the federation in itself, let's keep aside the whole jersey fiasco. Yeah. So the jersey bit is, okay, I don't even know who to point fingers at that. This is just amateur hour at the moment. But I have a quote from Subrata Paul, who is the AIFF director of the national team. And I'm going to read out the quote. You can tell me what you guys make of it. So he says that I believe the preparation was actually quite extensive. The Indian team went around 48 days overseas for exposure tour. The team played 6 matches in Turkey, 2 in Australia. Before that, they spent 6 days in Dubai and played 2 matches, and earlier had a 13-day camp in Shillong, where they played 2 matches as well. In addition, 7 national team players represented East Bengal, who played the SAF and AFC matches, and also featured in the IWL, playing 6 to 7 games. Altogether, the players were prepared for around 67 days, playing 13 games internationally, 17 for their club side. And so this is what he said in terms of preparation. And he also said that it was per East Bengal's request for the time, AFC Champions League and the SAF commitment they had. So you had to plan the IWL, which was initially supposed to be this full league, had to be broken into 2 chunks. So if you are going by the numbers, have they done a good enough job? Or is this one of those things where you are basically stat padding?
No. Okay. So I was posted there for like 1 minute, and I myself was nauseated by it. So, but getting back to the reality of the matter, right? There are women at the Asian Cup who are 35-40 games into the season. right? They played 30 games, 20 games of their league, and they played 10 friendlies with their national teams, right? Why are you taking credit for East Bengal playing 7 games in AFC and SAF? They've done it on their own merit, right? You've not sent them, right? They've qualified on merit and they've gone there, right? Secondly, what sort of friendlies did you organize? Did you organize friendlies so that they would face some quality opponents, or did you organize friendlies so that you could eyewash? You could conduct this massive eyewash exercise as you always do with friendlies,
It's the
where you
exposure
play.
tour is
Yeah,
phenomenal.
no, you play friendlies so that the public is optimistic before a major tournament. You don't play friendlies so that you would get a, a challenge, a real kick in the pants, right? The India under 20 team, for example, right now went to Sweden, right? We know that the standard of the IWL is somewhere maybe Swedish second tier types. And according to script, they beat the third tier teams. They drew with the second tier team, and they faced Hammarby, who were second this season in the female elite Syrian, and they were hammered by Hammarby 6-0. So, what sort of friendlies are you organizing before? I'm not saying you have to always get national teams. I tweeted that out before, saying you don't need to get national teams. You can play against, let's say, boys sides, right? From personal experience, facing the Indian national team had faced, let's say, under 17 sides and under 20 sides. And under 20 sides themselves would have been a step too far from personal experience. Under 17 and 19 sides would have been much better, right? You're just justifying the newly found funds that you got at your disposal, and you're saying the number of days in the camp is immaterial. What you did in the camp is, right? In a year where you're under 20, under 17, and seniors all qualified to Asia, you had a 16-day league, 16 or 20-day league, 7 games packed, right? There is no understanding about the concept of loading and peaking, and you should peak at this tournament. There is no scientific rationale behind this, right?
But
You just
can I play a devil's advocate in there? National teams world over, no club is looking, oh, I'm going to allow my players to peak for the national team. Right? You play the season,
correct.
In between you go.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But you have an entire bunch of staff for this purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you don't, right? The national team does not have, like, it. We're not, let's say, a 5 or a 6, tier 5 or a 6 nation, right? Where we have like 3 people in the entire department. It's not like that, right? Right. I mean, if you look at the circumstances, and I was also reading the guy who was in charge of SNC, the guy who was, for me, one of the main catalysts behind that miracle in Thailand. He announced that he was not a part of this year, this time, right? The SNC bit of it. So I don't understand that also.
But
right?
you know why that happened?
Yeah.
He was at the airport, ready to go. And then when you announced that we're bringing another coach, and she's bringing a goalkeeping coach and bringing her SNC coach, if you've got any pride about yourself as a professional,
and he did,
just going to say, he did. It's simple as that. Because he's genuinely good at his job. He's the best in India at his profession.
Yeah.
And so simply, pride in your job, you're just like, no, I'm not playing second fiddle to somebody who hasn't worked with these players. And there's a big trust bond between coaches and players. And then, you're eroding that. And this is what the idiot who's in charge of running the national teams doesn't understand, because he's never been in a position at anywhere in his life where he's had to do this. You can't just put an ex-player who has no clue and no coaching experience and nothing in charge of this role, and this is what happens. So, I mean, it's mind-boggling some of the things in terms of.
But don't you think the mistakes
you mentioned about national teams, they don't allow you to peak and all that. Like what Arka said, this is not Japan or other countries and all that, right? And even Japan, if you look at what they're doing with their men's league now, they're doing a shortened version this year, so that finishes before the World Cup, and then they're realigning their league so that it matches with European standard for transfer markets, etc. If you look at, I know this because obviously worked there recently, Philippines, their women's league hasn't started this season. Why? because most of the players that were the national team, focus was on that. They played the SEA Games, and after the SEA Games, they've come into this tournament, and no surprise that they probably gotten out of their group as one of the best players. I mean, they were in a tough group too. So you got to do everything possible to help the national team. And as like I said, a 16-game league is not one of them, right? These camps are rubbish, right? And when you're changing the coach middle of the camp, so if you're talking about, oh, East Bengal played this many games, it's not like you're taking Anthony Andrews and he's the national team coach, and then you can say, okay, he's worked with those players, and therefore it's this continuity. He's got that exposure and experience with the Indian. It's a completely different coach. So that is hogwash, what he's talking about. And then to play against like Perth something or the other where they beat them 5-0, you're playing amateur teams. And that's not going to help you prepare for Japan. The pace of the game, you'd be better off playing boys teams. If you want to match the speed and intensity of Chinese Taipei and Vietnam, you could have played against an under-16 boys team in India instead of going to Turkey and playing meaningless games. But we all know what these junkets are for and who benefits from it. I mean, I think this is something that's been going on for years and years, and it's not going to change because, and all these players, I mean, look, Subrata's from that generation where they went and had a holiday in Portugal for 6 months with Bob Houghton, and then, ended up coming last in the Asian tournament, and it was like, oh, wow, that's the future. That's how we need to do it. So it's the blind leading the blind, and then just repeating the same mistakes every time, expecting different results.
So that is what I want to touch on. Now, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that I'm often playing a devil's advocate here because I need to move the conversation along. But one question here, Ki, is what Prad mentioned at the end, that you are not making new mistakes. You are making the old mistakes again and again. This exposure tour and this kind of preparation, we have seen this, for easily over 10 years. I mean, entire time when I was in journalism, they kept doing these kind of stuff for an age group team, for whatever, camps and so on and so forth. So we are not making new mistakes. That is what really worries me. We are making the same mistake.
Having worked inside the corridors of, and many people on podcast worked at SAI for 2 years, worked as sports authority in India. These kind of things get the funds, right? Oh, we're going to go abroad and play a camp. Immediately some OSD there, some guy who's in charge there, he'll be like, oh, no, let me sign this file. That sounds great, right? But you tell them, I'm going to have a camp here. I'm going to play 5 under-16 boys teams. They're immediately like, that shit. Why are you wasting our money? Why are you doing this? So the whole concept of sports literacy comes into play here, right? Who knows their shit? Who's going to orchestrate it? Who's going to, let's say, push good proposals across the line? Just the concept of the fact, the best 23 did not go, right? The best coach did not go, right?
But they got a new coach at the last minute, right?
No, but for a long time, a coach who was relegated from the IWL, that coach was there. Let me be very honest. Yeah. Now they have 28 goals to their name. 17.
I think they are planning to extend
from previous.
Sorry? Amelia Valverde's contract is what I saw on the news. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it might be extended. It might. They're newly flushed with funds.
No, I think it's done. No, I think it's done. A contract.
Done? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but they're looking at. Yeah, they're looking at. You're saying it is extended?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I mean, what do you have to do to lose the job? So coming last is obviously a good sign.
I saw the news. Prad, you know for a fact that it's extended already?
I've heard from the horse's mouth that it was just for that.
Two games. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm hearing it's been extended for the 2 games that are going to happen in Kenya. Right? They're going to Kenya. So I've heard this. My point was she was also led astray. Let's be very brutal with the fact that she was given a set of players. Had she had time to watch the IWL, there's no way she's bringing this 23, right? Because for me, there's about half the squad I would not put on that plane, right? And Constantine had this problem. Also, for example, when Constantine took over, there were a bunch of oldies that were way past their expiry date, right? And they went through that horrible patch where they lost to Guam and all of that. And then he decided, let me just chuck these guys, get in fresh blood. it worked. But then again, they stuck on for way too long, and it's an Indian football thing for being stuck on for way too long. And I keep saying, a player gets in an under 14 level and under 15 level at the national team, and they're there for life, right? That basically you're telling the other kids that then you're not improving or you're not good enough post the age of 14 to improve and get into the order of things.
And it's the same with the coaches.
Yeah.
The staff at some of the national team level would look at the men's team. I can name names. There's some guys who've been there and are part of the furniture. So the bad habits continue. The culture of failure continues. And what hope does it give any young coach in India saying like, oh, you do well, or you can break into the national team setup? So the only person was, you talk about the S&C coach who's done really well,
he didn't get his props for it.
He's worked his way up. You don't get the props for him. He's worked with the boys teams and the women's teams. Everywhere he's gone in, club teams as well. The guy is very good. But what's the reward? Oh, we're getting it at somebody else. It's demoralizing for coaches, and it basically means if you keep your mouth shut and do what status quo, kiss ass with the older players who don't deserve to be there, and you form groupism, you keep your job, and that's not going to help take the game forward in whether men's, women's, anything. It's just the dial will never change.
Prad, can I ask one thing? This is very left field. Okay, just something that popped in my head. You have lived abroad and worked abroad and so on. Is there, not to this level, but is there a certain amount of groupism that a national team coach needs to have, like Raymond Dominic, you remember back in the day, or Didier Deschamps, who's doing the same? So do you need to have some players on side, and that might mean that you annoy Anelka or you annoy Karim Benzema or someone? Is that something that happens?
Yeah, look, that's going to happen whether you're national team or a club team. You're going to have that, but you as a coach, you've got to go in. You're going to make decisions and take away some and break up those groups. As long as you win, you've done your job, right? No one's going to care. That's where the challenge becomes. But I think, like what Arka's saying, fundamentally, the wrong players were already picked in the squad, and she didn't know. But she's not going to know because she was brought in too late. So that fault is not on her. That fault is on the people who brought. And the fault of picking the wrong players. If you don't have the league running, it's easy, then no one questions, because then there's a few people like Arka who followed the league and followed it for many years. You can say that person hasn't performed, this person's been performing. But you looked at the fullbacks in the game and even just first 30 minutes of the game and the first game, and you're watching thinking, how did you pick these two to start? But then again, if you played against a team where you're winning 5-0 and 5-0 against amateur sides, your fullbacks probably weren't tested. All they were doing was going forward and putting crosses in and looking good, but they never had to defend one-on-one. And the moment they had to defend one-on-one, it was just like, are you a professional player? And I'm not trying to call people out, but that was the stark difference between the players. And there's some good players. Look, they injuries. They I think Andrew Tamang without injury, you miss a couple of players, but the difference between the good players and some of the players on the side, like, you can't have such a disparity in the national team level. You've got your Manishas and your Sangfridas and a couple of other girls, even at least effort-wise, Pyari, and the goalkeeper, she was good. And then there's just this drop-off to the other players. And that shouldn't exist at the national team level when there are players on the bench who may not play in that position, but they wouldn't have been that drop in level. So you've got to have at least national team level players. And I think some of them were IWL2 level players.
Yeah. And obviously, I know a lot of the inside stories. Can't mention it here, but ego played a huge part in some of the omissions, right? Asha, for example, our most decorated player, our highest cap player, somebody with massive experience, right? Somebody who's played abroad, somebody who still has the defensive moves and chops. If you watch the IWL, right? That backline was horrendous. There is no way they are professional level, right? I actually feel bad for Nirmala because she's been playing at centre back, and I think at the IWL level she's a very good centre back. But then she was like a fish out of water on the right hand side, and because she didn't look comfortable in that position at all. Sarita and Shushmita, who are playing fullbacks for the team that has won everything for the last 1.5 years, right? That has lost one game domestically in the last 2 years. They were given only Sarita was given one match, right? Where she was combative. I think she tried to do decent against Japan, but putting anybody in against Japan for their
They're
debut
too high level, yeah.
is always
Yeah.
dicey, right? And then Sanfida, you did not
But
put
do you
her
think
in.
that she was put in there because they knew she was the best? For that game, the hardest
Then
game,
why
you put
not
the
put her in
best player.
against Chinese Taipei then?
Yeah,
Why
you
not
tell
put her in?
me.
It's for the reasons Orca is saying. It's like
Yeah, you tell
you're
me.
trying to justify the omission almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because
Yeah,
I've
you
heard
put
some
the
national team
better
players
player
say this.
against the
Yeah.
you put a better player against. If you played against some of the like Vietnam or Chinese Taipei, you would have seen the difference. But you put it against Japan, you're not going to see the difference because anybody in that position. You look at that first goal by Japan. I mean,
That's a cracker.
any good defender, you show them inside, you show them on their weaker foot possibly, and then it's just bent in the top corner. There's nothing you can do. That level is just different. It's just different class. So I think it's unfair on her to be thrown in that game and then to be judged on that game. So
Absolutely. But
that's why I mean, the
you
selection was
you
all
guys
wrong.
being football men understand the fact that they put the best player against the best competition and they look very average. But you put them against average competition, they will look better. But other people might say, "Oh no, they got
No,
ripped apart by Japan."
and I'll tell you what the most shocking bit is. There were some people who were obviously head of lobbies, right? After they left the women's national team, you thought that things would be better. But no, their successors have carried on the same logic, right? If you look at the six women who signed that letter, they are the six senior people. We won't name who they are, but my point is, there is no way, and I'm going to name. There's no way Sanju should have played after the first 30 minutes. She played 260 minutes. I think she was substituted late against Chinese Taipei. There's no way she should have played, right? There's no way Sangeeta should have started the tournament, right? Sangeeta, yes, she scored those 2 goals against Thailand, but then she had barely played the IWL. People put her on a pedestal, and see what happened, right? Pyari, and I always say the people were like, oh, Pyari this, Pyari that. I saw Pyari last year. Pyari struggled for Odisha FC, right? I've seen Pyari for years. She's not the type of forward we want. She's not the type of winger that will get us. Soumya Gugulat was. But the thing is, you did not have an Anthony Andrews who knew how to use Soumya Gugulat. I saw Soumya Gugulat, and I am honestly shocked by some of the decisions that Amelia is also taking in game, right? Because she made the runs. Soumya made the runs, right? The problem was nobody was feeding her, right? Pyari, on the other hand, when she got the balls, she was skying them all over the place, right? But the thing was, Soumya was substituted thrice in a row. Pyari remained on the pitch, mind blown, right? Kajol D'Souza, I get back to this girl, the best forward in the country right now. Watch this girl. Sometime I think Prad may have watched if he was at BDFA. I watched the girl. She's playing in Saudi, obviously far away from all this noise, right? Incredible player, right? But the problem is she was at Odisha, and guess who was at Odisha last season? So there was some sort of scuffle. There was some sort of fallout, right? That much, anybody can put that 2 and 2 together, right? And the thing is, she's not playing either on the under 20 team or she's not playing on the senior team. So we did not perform that we could have, but any chance of a 5 to 10% margin, right? And football, 5 to 10% margins a lot, have been taken away by ego, by selection issues, by preparatory issues, right? And that is my concern today. Like, you can have a bunch of good players also coming through in the future, but everything will conspire against them to drag them down.
Yes. So I think we'll end this section with a little bit of reticence looking back, but at the same time, we know there is talent, and as both of you say, and I agree, women's football probably we can get to the biggest competition faster if we do the right things. So hopefully we can do that. And now going forward, we'll get back into the men's football for the second half of this podcast. Welcome back to the half of the show, and we are going to talk about the league that has been going on. Both of you guys are involved. Prad, I see you on TV and on commentary. Thanks for the call out and props that you gave my book. Appreciate it. But can we start by saying, have you guys enjoyed the season so far? I'll be honest, like the only match I saw in person was the Shillong Lajong match in Shillong, and I loved it. So I haven't seen an ISL match in person yet. But can you tell me what you think of ISL and Indian Football League?
I mean, I've had the pleasure, I mean, I use that word cautiously, of having done, TV work for both of them. And honestly, and I'm not just saying this for the sake of, sensationalism, I find the IFL much more entertaining to watch
You mean
than the
IFL,
ISL.
right?
I know
Indian Football League.
IFL, the Star Cement IFL, to give it its full name now. And I just, yesterday's game was a perfect example. It was 2-2, 2-0 up, 2-1, 2-2, red card. It's got drama. Okay, maybe you can say they lack a little bit of quality. There's a little bit of, inexperience, but it's fun. It's fun to watch. I mean, just like you hear now, some other famous podcasts, the rest of the football and start talking about how the Premier League is not fun anymore, but the Championship is more fun. And so it happens. Like, I think the Premier League has just become a bit set piece, and that. And I just find the ISL dour to watch at times. There's some of the teams, like you watch Kerala Blasters versus Chennai, and you're pulling teeth. The number of passes at the back, it's slow. And in a slow-paced game, these players are time wasting. You're like, what are you doing? And I think I tweeted it, like, are you auditioning for Khalid Jamil's team to be like, you're trying to show that I can play this sort of, girja tactics. And, it's just
war of attrition,
embarrassing.
no?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, we've all watched the sort of Mumbai FC playbook of I-League, and we're going to play that way of, just go 1-0 up and then time waste and goalkeepers cramping. It's embarrassing. And, if somebody from outside just came and watched it, they'd watch that and they think, okay, this is why India's 140 in the world, or this is why they don't qualify. And it's that bad this season. The quality on display is shocking. And yeah, IFL is it's fun. It's just unpredictable. It's fun. You look at the table, who's on top? Chan Murray, Aizawl, Shillong Lajong, no foreigners. And then you've got these other myopic clubs who've gone and signed, the old school, like random, like, okay, let's go find a random African who's playing Cape. Probably read your book and just said, okay, he's good. Gone to all the sacred grounds in India and found some Cape players and Sevens players and said, yeah, he'll do. He's already in the country. We don't need to get a visa. So, and let's see if it works. And but it's nice to see young Indian players coming through. There's some really exciting Indian players in the IFL.
What about you, Orko?
Not sure, Orko, if you've seen. Yeah.
I think the ISL, I think he said he's on commentary. I'm sometimes on text with him, and I'm pulling my eyes out at home. I'm like, what is this? What is going on? Don't even want to get into individual details because, I mean, I watched Kerala Blasters Chennai too. I don't know why, but I was watching the game.
Because you are addicted and you just want to watch.
I'm an Indian football addict. I have to go into some rehab program. Because I promised myself that this season I won't watch. I promised myself because this season was, but I ended up watching it anyway. Some of the RFDL games have been better. Some of the Reliance games are much better. They're much more pacier. They're fun to watch. At least they're going for it. Teams are going for it. Teams are playing with better principles. These are grown-ass men playing football for years, and they're playing at this level. And whereas they know the standard that is required of them, right? Some of these men go into a national team, and I mean, who play like this, the writing's on the wall, right? Indian coaches have been given a job, and predictably, a lot of those teams are up and down, right? There is zero enthusiasm in the league right now. There is zero fun in the league right now. Mohun Bagan strolling to the title, right? Jamshedpur was the only one. That's probably going to decide her, right? Mohun Bagan was Jamshedpur. And we called it at the start of the season. We said Jamshedpur one of the dark horses. Mohun Bagan is probably going to win it, right? East Bengal, despite assembling this great squad, is again floundering, right? A draw to FC Goa, lost to Jamshedpur, right? And there is no way they should be drawing with FC Goa. FC Goa have let all of their foreigners go. 2 foreigners they're playing. right? They put on the kids, right? But whatever. IFL, like he says, right? The joy of discovering new players, joy of watching new players, the joy of just watching teams, right? Not thinking about their pay packages and what's going to happen to them if they get relegated. The joy of having teams just having a go at it, right?
Yep.
See, look, I'll be very honest, right? Football, even till this date, I know a lot of Twitter analysts and saying do this, do that. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a spectator's game, supposed to be an interesting game. It's not supposed to put me to sleep. It's supposed to excite me, right? Otherwise, I'd watch the national sport of India, right? But yeah, no offense on Test cricket, but the other formats. But
Yeah.
the point is the ISL's not been worth watching, right? Nobody's going to invest in sort of league. If you're thinking you're going to just park the bus and not get relegated, it's fine, right? But you're anyway not going to attract anybody to the audience. Nobody's going to watch your games on. If nobody's watching a stadium, I guarantee nobody's watching on TV, right? Because stadium, at least the game looks 10 times faster than it is on TV. On TV, it looks horrible right now, right? So, and I know people spoke of the Blasters getting less than 6,500. I've been following that entire fiasco, right? I mean, they're not really alone in this malaise. Every like 10 out of 11 teams are playing this sort of football. So, I mean, who are we to only point fingers at Kerala Blasters?
So I also have to say this. This year, when we restarted the podcast, I was insisting that I be the host because I knew, because my interest lies elsewhere now, that I'm not going to be watching as many games as I used to before, and I needed other people who are doing it, right? So that just shows the kind of top level that we all spent so many years working and writing and watching these games, and I loved watching IFL. And you see Chanmari on top just got promoted, and it's a small place. If you go to Aizawl, it's just like a small village, not a village actually, but small area wing,
Locality,
let's
yeah.
say, a
Locality,
wing
yeah.
in Aizawl. And they're the team from there. They don't have a lot of money, but they managed to put it together, and they're running a club. Shillong Lajong again representing local people, and you have Aizawl who's doing the same. They are on top, and I love the fact that they are on top. And you look down the level also, barring 2, 3, quite a lot of them are not, clubs that have been sort of created later. They were some community clubs at the beginning and sort of become something bigger. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed watching the game Shillong Lajong. Shillong was cold, windy, and people were there. Some 3,000, 4,000 people were there. It's a small stadium. SSA ground is not like a 25,000 seater.
But I think that's the key, Sandeep, what you said. One is small stadium.
Yeah.
And I think your game was at night, right?
Yeah.
The one you watched? So
Yeah.
if that game was a 2 o'clock kickoff, it would have been packed stands. Shillong doesn't have good public transport. And even in the Aizawl games, if you play the games in the Northeast earlier in the day, because it always gets dark sooner, you're going to get better crowds. And that's one of the best stadiums in India to watch football. At Shillong SSA ground, because it's small, it's compact, the crowd's right on top of the players. And for the life of me, I don't know why we used to follow the stupid licensing criteria, and then Shillong had to play in jail, and just literally 100 meters up the road. And it was a terrible atmosphere in that stadium, except obviously in the early years when they were packed out. But Indian football needs to move away from these silly government-built stadiums which have this athletic track around them, and you're so far away that you can't even see what's happening, and there's no atmosphere. I saw recently Delhi had its first game. Punjab was playing in JLN in Delhi. That stadium is designed for Commonwealth Games with a VIP area and seating. So there's a track, and then there's another sort of, I would say, at least 30 meters before you can get to the stands. And that's if you're on the bottom front row. So if you're on the top middle row or back on the higher seats, you're almost 100 meters away from the ground.
Yeah.
So it's a terrible viewing experience. And there were lots of Northeast supporters in the stadium. So the half decent, that's the best they're going to get, because they're playing Northeast in Delhi. You'll get a good crowd, but you couldn't see it, and you certainly couldn't feel it in the stadium. And only thing noticeable in that stadium was that it looked like the holy colors were left over, where they tried to cover the grass and or the brown grass to make it look green. So it's just shocking that we're still playing in those kind of stadiums.
But it's amazing the difference, right? Because if people don't know, you have the pitch, and then you have the running track, and then you have space where a long jump happens. On the side there is high jumps, pole vault, and all these
Steeplechase.
spaces.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So it's not just the track, it's the 30, 40, maybe 20, 30 meters of extra space after the track, and then probably a fence, and then you sit. So you're quite far in all these athletic stadiums. But Prad, you would remember because you were both in Shillong as well as BFC in the first season. I remember their
Yeah.
game against Dempo, and they had a Brazilian, I think, Beto, if I'm not mistaken.
Better, yeah.
And I remember people standing up and shouting at him, saying, "You were good ones." They were singing, "You were good ones," and you could see
Yeah,
him
that
just
was the
look up
BFC owner
saying,
who was saying that.
I know, I didn't want to say, but you could see him look up and think, "What is going on?" I remember other players, getting screamed at when they are coming to take a throw, or that kind of atmosphere that you get where your cow's on you and you can hear and see individual faces. That makes a difference, and I feel we are
Exactly.
missing out.
Yeah, that's why Kolkata League, when they play in the Maidan, the games are so much
Yeah.
more exciting. And then, you always say, oh, if a player can manage to play in Kolkata, he can play anywhere. That's what they mean. It's not playing at Salt Lake. I mean, Salt Lake, okay, the derby, maybe you feel a little bit of pressure and you feel the crowd. But when you play in the Maidan, those games, that's when players like, oh, if I have a bad game in the first half and I'm going off in that tunnel through there, you are going to hear it. Whether you speak Bengali or not, by the end of the second or third game you played, you will know
At
a
least the
lot more
bad words,
Bengali than you did. You'll have a few phrases already by the time, whether you're a foreign coach or foreign play, Indian play, you'd have picked up a few choice words by your second or third game if you're not performing.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I
So,
remember happening to this very, very famous keeper. Not going to name him, but it's pretty obvious. He was playing for one of the Kolkata Giants, and he conceded a goal between his legs, and he goes on and flips the bird. And he thought, yeah, I'm being cool at this thing. He probably did not know who he was, who he was doing in front of, because I think they would have smashed his car that day if there was no security around, right? For years there was an East Bengal official, and they called him it wasn't an affectionate nickname. It was more of a, what do you say, a pejorative nickname. They called him Cut Money, right? I think some people can figure out who I'm talking about. Every year after the loss, and that was the time East Bengal lost a lot of this thing, they would essentially grow him, and they would try and get in a few pot shots at him. So yeah, I mean, I miss those days. I mean, not from a security point of view, but from an accountability point of view, yes.
Yeah, I would always suggest everybody. So when we went to Shillong, I insisted that my wife and one of my childhood friends, she was also there. We were like, let's go for the game. It's a Sunday night. You really don't have much to do in Shillong on a Sunday night, and you will not regret it. And we couldn't get a cab, and also I ended up walking from all the way down and all that kind of stuff. But they were like, okay, halftime, they didn't leave. They were so excited and engrossed. So anybody traveling, you get a chance to go and watch these games live, especially the IFL, when these clubs that bring a lot of fans in. Please go and watch it. It's worth your time. I'm telling you, it's absolutely worth your time. Now, getting back to the final point today, which is something that maybe, like you mentioned earlier, the Tottenham phenomenon. Kerala Blasters currently are having a horror show. 4 losses in the game. They're not the only ones. Sporting Delhi and Mohammedan are also without a point. Now, I have 2 questions here.
Delhi have a point. They got a point against Mumbai. Sporting Delhi have a point. They got a point against Mumbai.
Sorry. Yeah, but it's not too much, right? 0, and I think number 3 is 7 points. The third place is 7 points, I think. So
check that.
Okay, anyway, it's not too big, the gap. Either way, the question I want to ask is 2. One, are Kerala Blasters too big to go down, especially comparing the squads in the other teams? And 2, if anybody does go down, will they actually go down? Because in India, you can sort of get away with, like a cheat code and you escape relegation.
Yeah, I think the first thing, when you compare those other sides, one is Mohammedan Sporting don't have any foreign players that are transferred in Barber, so they are genuinely handicapped. Sporting Delhi started late, a lot of youngsters, but if you look at their trajectory, they're actually going upwards. They're improving game by game, and they're decent to watch. They got some good young players, so you can sort of go along with that. The decisions that Kerala Blasters to let go of your foreign players because you don't want to pay, and then to go and sign a whole new bunch of foreigners, release one, sign one, so you've gone about 6 players, whilst nipping the sort of wage brackets of the local lads. There's just so many things that are going wrong. You have talented youngsters, you let go of them. It's not even like they're loaned, they're actually just let go. So there's just so many decisions. And then you come out and make a statement about, oh, we were trying to get this coach and we're trying to get that coach. How is your current coach going to feel about that? You just completely undermined him by saying, you were our you were our fourth choice. So it's almost effectively saying that. So it's those kind of decisions, which is why, they are becoming the sort of the Tottenham Hotspur of Indian football, because you just look at every single thing that they're doing, who is making the decisions and why they make this decision. And coming to that, just like Tottenham, are they too big to go down? They avoided it, or may avoid it, because the other teams are worse off than them. And that's the only way. It's the same thing for Kerala Blasters. Finally, will they actually go down? I don't know. This season, it's fair to relegate teams because it's not a full season. So to relegate someone after 13, where you're not, all of your games are home, some are away, Jamshedpur have more home than away. I'm not sure if it's fair, but maybe they'll go into that abyss. There's the ISL and there's the IFL, and in between there's an abyss, isn't there, where Churchill brothers are operating. So maybe they'll end up in that sort of abyss. So.
So, Orko, same question to you.
Yeah, go on.
No, same question to you, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm just laughing at my own internal joke here. It is damn funny. It is damn funny. Some people have a knack of doing this at multiple places. It is damn funny, right? Because, like I said, a person close to me, he did give this quote, and I laughed on it for days. Because it's true. It's true.
It's true.
Some people are great at, let's say, not doing the correct things. And like Prad said, everything that is going wrong, everything that could have possibly go wrong is going wrong for them.
I saw a comment from them because the two twins were let go, right? And
that was shocking.
And then they didn't want to play for Kerala. I don't know, I have too much knowledge into the background of it, but I can't imagine them wanting to leave unless there is some other thing at the back. There is no reason for them to leave. They came through the ranks.
You're Malayali, right? You know the Malayali mindset. You know that people would rather stay. Yeah, people would rather stay than go.
If I could get a job in Kerala, I'd go back at some point.
Yeah.
Not now, but
right. Yeah. You know this, right? It happened to your cousin also, who stayed here. He said, I go back.
My cousin met Orko and was so impressed because of Orko and the way he was talking. He's like, oh my God, that guy is so good. And then he left and then to Kerala.
My point is, I can't imagine those twins leaving of their own accord. Something, so people snap. Sometimes people are pushed to the limit. They're like, that's enough is enough. I'm leaving, right? So,
or you leave for higher thing, right? You like Sahal left for Bagan. Fine.
They did not leave for higher pay. According to reports, they are actually getting paid 60% lesser than what they were at Blasters. Yeah. But I love it. I love I love the fact that they wanted game time. They were like, we want clarity. Right now, the thing is, as a player, and this is only my POV, right? If I was a player, I would go where I had clarity. In this godforsaken season, wherever I had clarity, I would go, right? And I think that's what happened to these guys. And that is what I feel like with more educated players coming through, I've heard Ayman and others speak. I think they have some good heads on their shoulders. I think this is what's going to happen. People are going to move. People are going to try and prioritize. On the other hand, if I look at Pramveer, right? Nowhere. Like the breakout star last season, nowhere this season, right? So there are a lot of things that are going wrong at Blasters, but I think those two matches with Delhi and Mohammedan are 6-pointers, and that's essentially going to decide who's going to go down. Odisha aren't out of the woods yet, but the fact that they've gotten two draws out of their first three, I think tells you that actually the best thing they could have done is retain Puitia and Isak, right? And I looked at the foreigners, looked at everyone else, said these two are the ones who are running the game. And Prad and I were also speaking. Puitia put in some killer deliveries in their first game. I think it was against India Kashi, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was saying in commentary, nobody was getting on the end of it, right? So yeah, so I'm saying essentially continuity might help Odisha, but for Blasters, I feel like they've thrown continuity out of the window, right? They've kind of what do you say, thrown away their ethos. Great to them, they had developed a good, decent youth outfit from which players were moving, and suddenly that coach has now become the head coach of another ISL team, Sporting Club of Delhi, and you have people moving elsewhere, right? So yeah, I think they're not too big to go down. There is no Indian club who are too big to go down, right? But on the flip side, I think the ecosystem would miss them. The ecosystem would miss the enthusiasm, the passion that the fans bring. But I feel like, and the signals that are coming from there aren't really encouraging, because I feel like they're kind of not giving a lot of confident vibes, right? If you read what they're writing, if you read the videos, they're not really. If I was a fan, I would not be too enthused by it, right? On whether you're talking about sustainability, that is fine, but sustainability at the cost of what, right? You're saying, you've given comments such as we will try and resuscitate our women's team by trying selling a bunch of products. I don't understand what is going on, but I feel they need to get a grips on their communication right now. Somebody needs to go in there and say, guys, we cannot be publicly putting this out. We need to first get our house in order, and we need to look at what sort of communication we're putting out. Because right now, if I was a communications guy, this is not the sort of effective communication I'd want, either from a club as a fan, or if I was a member of the club, if I was an official of the club, I would not want this.
Yeah, but Rocker, let's flip this around, right? The big club, they've got the biggest organized fan following, I would say. Look, obviously, East Bengal Mohun have a big fan following, but you look at the way, you look at the way Kerala Blasters fans are organized. They hold their WhatsApp group, and it's like almost like how a Ponzi scheme would be set up. But and Sandeep, you know this from being in that region. For all of that fan following, probably not the most. I don't know. They don't channel it in the right direction. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. One of the things is you've got this blind belief that Vukomanovic was this god figure, right? Like the guy, the decline started with a lot of what he did. The walkout Manovic, right? And if we got 3 playoffs in 3 seasons. Well, you finished 5th in 2 of those seasons. It's not really a playoff position. You finished 5th. It's because the benchmark was increased for playoffs that you got in. So what they consider success, I mean, you've got good youngsters coming through, and they're all leaving and going elsewhere, because I don't think young players want to play at that club, because they know for their career it's better to be out of there, because the fans are fans are fickle. But you talk about, it's a funds crunch, blah, 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 we're having to let go of players. You don't see the fans group mobilizing and saying, no, we can motivate, we can get money together, crowdfund, whatever, and keep a Luna, or keep the women's team going, or keep, it isn't. It's very sort of pick and choose. When your team needs you the most, the crowd disappears. Like, as soon as
would any other fan group, fund to that level? I think maybe the Calcutta clubs to an extent have in the past, and sort of pitched in here and there.
No, that's not the thing. Like, the reason I'm saying, normally no, but if you think about the culture, and you're in your book as well, in that region, the way sevens groups are, it's community funded, a lot of it, right? You go around, look, we talked about Chanmari earlier, this community funding. They've actually managed to get the government now to give them 25 lakhs. With that kind of, I'm not saying each fan has to dip into their pockets and you go around to the bucket and put that in. It's fine, you can. You see it in English clubs have done that, where to protect their club from going down in liquidation. Fan groups have come forward, even at clubs like Man United, right?
Leicester,
huge,
saved them from
Leicester
liquidation.
and all that. So you don't see if it's such a big fan group, that obviously has a political, that's vote banks as well, right? So surely that could influence things. But it doesn't seem to be. It's just sort of, it's online fans. It's not, it's Twitterati, it's comments on social media. So, they'll win those, whatever the social media battles are. I think there's a social media fans football tournament coming out, right? Where you vote Instagram world, whatever you call it, club tournament. But that's not enough, is it? They could channelize that, I'm saying, in a better way, rather than what they're doing. So it's not just the club. I think the overall thing is just a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I have a slight view with the fans thing.
I'll probably get some hate mail for that. Yeah.
No, I just have a different view with the fan thing, and it's not a Kerala fan per se. Generally, fans, they are out more and more. That I now look at. I'm not so much focused on the football aspect of it as much as what is around football. So more I look at it, football is now competing with all entertainment, right? Because Netflix and whatever. So it's very quickly and very easily you could lose a fan who watches half an hour, is not entertained. I'll just see what's on Hotstar, or I'll just go watch an old movie, or I'll just flip through Instagram. So I don't think we'll have that kind of old school, like let's all on a Sunday, it's church and this. That was what England was, right? That I don't know will exist anymore. But more than that, I wonder. I mean, this is again might get some hate mail for this, but Kerala historically, you see the clubs, the big teams, they are only there for a period of time. So you had Alin Kundra, you had Premier Tires, and you had the Kerala Police, and you had all these teams.
FC Kochi.
Only for say 10 years, 15 years. Well, after that they sort of go down for whatever reason. Some are company based, so the company's fortunes and all depend on that. So the Kerala Blasters what close to 15 years now. So I do wonder if there is that thing of running a club and everybody's just now they're realizing the finances are not lining up as it used to be. So I wonder if they will slowly sort of pull in the reins. You can't let go of Luna. Luna will come back next year because fans will riot if you let go of Luna. But the rest of the players you can sort of play around, especially the Indian players.
That's a question. Would they have been better off keeping Luna and not these 6 foreigners that they've brought in?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Simple as that from multiple points of view, right? Just anything. But that's a question for them, not us.
Yes. So as we come down to the end of the episode, guys, free reign. Anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to say? Do this, do that, or promote or whatever?
Yeah. No, I'm going to go back to what we discussed at the start of the podcast, right? I feel like working in the grassroots is incredibly discouraging when you look at what's happening at the top, right? And talking about women's football, right? Running a grassroots, essentially, it is nothing. It is essentially ungratified social work, right? That is exactly what I've been doing for the last decade, and now full time, I must say. It is gratifying in the bit that we get to develop a player in real time, look at the player go from 0 to whatever. But it's not enough to have only one of us, right? There needs to be at least 10 of us in the ecosystem, because essentially even when our players play in the grassroots, they regress to the level of their opponents, right? They play at the pace of, and so even we can try and develop the best of players, right? But if the ecosystem doesn't really catch up as a whole, right, there is no point, right? And I think a lot of youth development outfits in the men's especially are realizing this, and I think Pratt can also add more insight into this because he's worked at the NCAA level. He knows, right? But the harsh truth is, I think once again, the most disappointing thing is there's this calls for World Cup qualification and all that. I mean, give it a rest, man. Like give it a break.
Yeah.
Right. So like first get a house in order, right? You want to go to this big shiny from this rundown jalopy of a house that you have. You want to go to this nice palatial bungalow, right? Where are your foundations? Where's your cement? Right? If it's crumbling, your house is crumbling, right? You're looking at this whole shiny new toy, right? You want to go to the World Cup. The team that you faced had 16 players in the Premier League, 4 players in Spain, right? Are you producing players of that caliber, right? Or are your World Cup dreams unsubstantiated? I suspect that they are unsubstantiated, right? And they're unsubstantiated 4 years ago also, when you very easily blamed COVID for not reaching the World Cup. I think at that point in time you drew with Iran. Today Iran is again the 11th team in the standings. India is 12th, right? They were 11th and 12th last time also, 11th and 12th this time also. No big difference, right? You've just barely scraped through to the Asian Cup. That's the truth of it, right? And that too because this is a weekend Thailand. This is not the Thailand that went to the World Cup, Women's World Cup, right? A few years ago, right? So the thing is, and even if I just take the grassroots out of it, right? There is no silver lining for players at the grassroots level, right? There is no, like, when they look at this, and our girls had look at this and they're like, my god, that's just horrible. Like they watched the Japan match from start to end, and they were like, that this is horrible. They were mortified. They were mortified with the prospect of ever playing in a team that gets whomped like that. So I mean, yeah, and like I said, I mean, I have nothing to say to the fair weather fans who basically wake up one Asian Cup, then sleep, then again next Asian Cup. But to the other people who are involved, and there are people who are passionate, but they're desperately misguided, right? People are talking about football specific stadia and coaches and all of this, and it doesn't make sense. There is no shortcut. There is no magic bullet, right? You have to work. It's 10 to 12 years of sustained work on one player to produce a single player, right? This is the truth of it. There is no Jack and the Magic Beanstalk. He gave you bean and you grow and you're done. Nothing, right? So yeah, that's it. Rant over for me.
Oh, it's
I think he's right about the grassroots thing. There's actually no two ways about it. You have to do that. I think the other thing is, hopefully, the India men's team match against Hong Kong is a hammering, because the men's team are out of major tournament qualification, and if they hit, until you hit rock bottom, they're not going to change it. And obviously the women should recognize it is rock bottom, but the under 20s and the under 17s might paper over those cracks, and they'll say, oh, look, there's something else. But that's just, it's papering over the cracks. The fact of the matter is, not enough is being done at the grassroots level, and it needs to be done. And I think once they hopefully recognize that, hopefully there's a change in the guard in September, and then people coming in will just say, right, we need to build this from the bottom up with some long-term planning, because you're not going to play in a World Cup unless you're consistently playing in the Asian Cup and consistently then getting out of your group. So it's a progress, it's step by step, and at every age group level. We just, as Orca said, we just about scrape in every single time. Right. So we're far, far away from the World Cup should be banished. That word shouldn't be allowed to be used. Right. There's so many steps before that, but it has to start from the youngest level. And until we get to the point where youth competitions are year round, the rest is just a pipe dream.
Yeah.
That's hopefully something that they will address after all these collective failures.
Yeah. The damning stat is 2019, 2022, 2024, and 2026. 4 Asian Cups, 10 matches cumulatively. You won 1. As a nation, we won 1. Right? Against Thailand, 4-1. That's 4-1. It. Yeah. Over 7 years at the continental level, we won 1 game as a nation. Right? That's it.
Yes. That's a good note to leave it on.
And yet we continue to produce podcasts and love the sport. So what does that say about us? And what does it say about you who's listening as well? So keep doing it. Support Orko and support Prad and support me or whatever. I have really got nothing going on to be supported. But these two are doing a lot of things. So please support them and please listen and support the game as well. Thank you so much. Until the next week. See you.